Hello viewers, welcome to our channel Universe Revealed. Our today's episode is about Atlantis versus Lemuria Kingdom before the Great War. We all know about the lost civilization of Atlantis for quite long time. However, did you know that besides Atlantis Kingdom, on the other side of the sea world, there was also a continent-sized empire called Lemuria, standing between Asia and Africa. The Lemurians and Atlanteans had existed at the same time, albeit in different locations. Although not close to each other, but also not too far for them to make a long war. In 1912, Alfred Wegener, a German meteorologist, proposed the first truly detailed and comprehensive theory of protocontinent through a large mass of geologic and paleontological data. Wegener presented Pangaea, the massive supercontinent which was surrounded by a single ocean called Panthalassa. Later, Pangaea broke up into several phases between 170 to 195 million years ago in the early Jurassic period, when the Central Atlantic Ocean opened. Most scientists believe that the supercontinent cycle is largely driven by circulation dynamics in the mantle, because Pangaea fractured largely along previous sutures. Magma from below the Earth's crust began pushing upward, creating a fissure between what would become ancient continents later. Lemuria and Atlantis are two of them. Lemuria is often portrayed as an earthly paradise, once was highly with spiritual happiness and wealth. The enigmatic landmass is believed to have covered regions such as Africa, Madagascar, India, and islands in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Sometime you may heard the name of it as continent of Mu or Kumari kandam in India. As for the story of Lemuria or continent of Mu, we must trace back to a Scottish archaeologist named James Churchward, who studied the inscription of Nakal until discovering the puzzling fact that about more than 50,000 years ago, there was a continent that flourished over a land called Lemuria, located on the floor of ocean. The story of the continent of Mu from Nakal inscriptions discovered in India. In fact, the inscription of Nakal was written by Naga symbols and characters from legend. It is said to be written first in the land of Mu. Later by the survivors, it was carried on in the land of Maya on Mesopotamia time, Egypt, and even India later on. In the last century, the inscription was first brought to Burma, which is Myanmar now, and then was preserved in India with many other ancient inscriptions. The inscription tells stories and describe about how Lemuria was raised and fallen. Let's look around inside. There were large cities and villages scattered across the three lands. Many cities were built around the mouths of great rivers. These rivers were the center of trade, exchange, and commerce. They were from every part of the world that sailed across the oceans. Mu was the source and the center of the world's prosperous civilization on the other side of Atlantis. Mu was the source of various knowledge, trade, and commerce. All countries around the world did trade with Mu. As a great navigator, their ships regularly carried passengers and cargo from various territories. The cruise ships always seemed with full of gentlemen and ladies dressed in luxurious clothes and embellished with jewels. The long oars of the boat add rhythm to the song and the laughter of happy passengers. The Lemurian also had incredible temples and cosmic ships capable of traveling to other planets in space. They knew how to access atomic energy, not only in uranium, but also from precious metals, stones, and certain grains. The Lemurian was also famous in high spiritual as the well-known occultist and medium of Russia, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, a Russian mystic and author who co-founded the Theosophical Society in 1875. She gained an international following as the leading theoretician of Theosophy. In her book, The Secret Doctrine in 1888, she presented the Lemurians as the genesis of the human race. They were considered as a race with clairvoyant powers, and according to esoteric enthusiasts, they foresaw the submergence of their own land. These foresighting had enabled them to prepare for their coming flood and preserve precious relics of their existence and culture. She also mentioned that among those protected treasures, the most valuable were ancient manuscripts dating from the Lemurian era, which to this day remain somewhere well hidden from us. Let's look around another side of the ocean, wherever the Atlantis was located. The legend of Atlantis is one of the ancient lost civilizations which existed prior to and during the time of Lemurian, which we had mentioned in our 3 episodes. Let's talk something new about Atlantis that I hadn't mentioned in previous episodes. The technology of Atlantis and how the war between Atlantis and Lemurian started and ended. By a couple of books of Scott Elliott, a theosophist who elaborated Helena Blavatsky's concept of root race in several publications, most notably The Story of Atlantis and the Lost Lemurian. In 1893, he presented detailed descriptions of Atlanteans' life and their culture. That it was a highly improved of humanity, exhibited cultural development including education, art, science, and religion. Scott describes that all high education would offered to the exceptionally gifted children of Atlantis. Those included training in the use of psychic abilities and the occult properties of plants, metals, and precious stones to heal diseases. They were also taught the alchemical techniques of matter transmutation, as well as the ability to tap into the secret powers of the universe. He describes the marvelous technological development that were achieved by the Atlanteans, including Vimana, airships, and flying machines. These airships were for the benefits of the wealthy class. Airships were generally built for a small number of persons, from 2-seaters to ships with room for 8. As the Atlanteans' age descended into warfare, the ships were used for battle. These battleships were much longer, accommodating up to 100 soldiers. Scott also describes their construction as the material of which the airboats were constructed was with wood, the boards used being exceedingly thin, but the injection of some substance which didn't add materially to the weight, while it gave leather-like toughness, provides the necessary combination of lightness and strength. When metal was used, it was generally an alloy, 2 white color metals and 1 red into its composition. The resultant was white colored like aluminium and even lighter in weight. Over the rough framework of the airboat was extended to a large sheet of thin metal, which was then beaten into shape and electrically welded where necessary. Whether built by metal or wood, The outside surface was apparently seamless and perfectly smooth, and it shines in the dark as if coated with luminous. Quite detailed, isn't it? Now that we know about both Atlantean and Lemurian and their technology already, in next episode, let's dig into the conflict and the reason behind their war that caused the early world magnetic change which sank a couple of continents into the ocean. And of course, who was behind this? That's all for today's episode. If you like the content, please do consider to like and share. Your kind gesture will always inspire us to carry on. Subscribe and click the bell notification icon below so you don't miss our new episodes. Thank you so much for being with us.